For decades, the global imagination held a very specific picture of India. It was a place defined by ancient traditions, deep spiritualism, and a culture of profound hospitality. Over time, that image updated to include a deep respect for the country's academic rigor and its vast export of technological brilliance. But today, if you open any social media app, that hard-earned reputation is being entirely overwritten. Now, the algorithm feeds the world an endless stream of chaotic public behavior and aggressively unhygienic practices. You see videos of tourists completely ignoring queue discipline, or vloggers screaming profanities in foreign spaces just for the camera. These might start as isolated incidents, but the internet stitches them together, creating a singular, highly visible prejudice that attaches itself to every single citizen traveling abroad. The reality is, human nature didn't suddenly degrade overnight. What actually happened is that the primary arena for international judgment moved entirely onto our screens. Everyday habits that used to be invisible to the outside world are now scooped up by digital platforms. They are packaged, monetized, and weaponized to construct a devastating national stereotype. This dynamic aggressively strips away your individual identity. Every border crossing turns you into a target for this collective stereotype, forcing you to carry the weight of an online cringe culture you didn't create. The internet has broadcast these once invisible local civic failures into a permanent, inescapable global reality. Before we point the finger entirely at algorithms, we have to look inward. The root of this global perception problem stems from a very real, very accepted domestic baseline of poor civic behavior. It comes down to a deeply ingrained public versus private divide. The cultural mindset dictates that the inside of your home is sacred, pristine territory. The street right outside your door, however, is exclusively the government's problem. This behavior is tied to a historical structure where public labor was strictly compartmentalized. For centuries, the physical task of cleaning public spaces was assigned to specific, separated groups rather than the community at large. This separation of responsibility meant the average person never felt the need to care for shared spaces. Maintaining the street was always someone else's job. Centuries of this social division effectively neutralized the shame that usually prevents littering, making it a routine habit long before the first smartphone ever hit the streets. For decades, this blind spot in civic responsibility was safely contained within physical borders. The rest of the world didn't see it. Then the modern internet arrived, and it acts as a massive catalyst, actively seeking out and financially rewarding shock value. Knowing exactly what the machine wants, digital content creators lean into these domestic realities, actively exploiting them to feed that insatiable algorithmic demand. You see this most clearly in the hyperfixation on street food. Creators capture the most chaotic, unhygienic, open-air food preparation they can find, knowing it will generate millions of views. And instead of expressing collective outrage at the lack of sanitation, domestic audiences often passively accept it or simply laugh it off as relatable content. When locals don't reject this content digitally, the global audience draws a logical, if unfair, conclusion. They assume this behavior is the universally accepted standard for 1.4 billion people. In the modern era, physical luggage is only half of what you carry across borders. Millions of viral videos have created a heavy layer of digital baggage that follows every traveler. This creates tangible friction for everyday citizens. Stepping up to an international checkpoint, you often face preemptive suspicion regarding your basic manners and hygiene, and that prejudice ripples outward. It quietly damages the dignity of expats who have lived abroad for years, and it actively undermines the country's soft power and international diplomacy. By allowing internet cringe culture to act as a de facto representative, we let an algorithm unfairly penalize every single citizen on the global stage. Dismantling this stereotype is a long, drawn-out project. It requires a hard shift in our cultural priorities. We have poured our educational energy into career building, teaching students how to code, how to speak English, and how to pass exams. But we urgently need to pivot toward character building, teaching basic civic responsibility and how to exist in a shared environment. True national pride doesn't come from aggressively defending symbols online. It comes from taking physical ownership of the public spaces right outside our front doors. In a hyper-connected world where every single action is broadcast, that personal civic sense has become the only digital passport that truly commands global respect.